Dr. Oscar van Heerden, Research Associate at the UJ Center for African Diplomacy and Leadership. Dr. van Heerden, thank you so much for your time. And of course, as we welcome you as well, Professor Andre Roux, who's with the Stellenbosch Business School, a very good evening to you both. And I wonder, Dr. van Heerden, for you, what are your initial reaction, especially on the performance of the South African president in the Oval Office?
Yeah, thanks, Bob. And I think that, as I said before, we expected that the whole choreographed scenario was going to play out. As I indicated before to you, that it was expected that Trump was not going to let the white genocide matter go. And we saw the dramatics around that. I think it's a good thing that Ramaphosa did not stoop to the level of degenerating to wanting to debate and argue an issue. And besides, he was just not afforded enough time to give a reasonable explanation. But I think constantly reminding President Trump that we are here to talk business, we are here for trade, for investment. And I think that Trump's strategy was killing two birds with one stone. He simply had to bring a matter to a conclusion on the white genocide issue and why he brought the refugees to America. And he did that very successfully. I think we have to give him that, even playing some videos and so on. So it was all choreographed. But at the same time, he knows that there's going to be fruitful conversations between the ministers and the counterparts to try and hit an agreement out amongst themselves, making it clear that this genocide matter is not necessarily going to negatively impact on the deals that they want to make with South Africa. So at the end of the day, I think by the time President Ramaphosa and the team arrives back, what the deal is going to be is what is going to determine whether the trip was successful or not. But as to tonight's performance, we all knew that it was going to be a difficult situation. And under the circumstances, I think President Ramaphosa conducted himself in a very mature way.
Prof, I'm going to come to you in just a moment. But Dr. van Heerden, did Team South Africa need to, though, not produce some stats at face value to counter some of what what was being said by the US president? One would have thought that these would have come in handy, I think.
Absolutely. As I said before, they needed to have the sound bites. They needed to have the points very clearly. The fact that they had the four white individuals as part of the team, I think that they should have role played. They should have told Ernie and Rupert what to say. Steenhuisen knew that he was going to be asked to respond to the white genocide claims, and his response was pathetic, to say the least. None of them wanted to say the exact words that there is no white genocide happening in South Africa. And that tells you that they are still having allegiance to the folk, to the Afrikaners. Any else talking about assistance in Angola, when we know that is actually the defeat of the Afrikaners and the Nationalist Party in Angola is what was the turning point and resulted in the end of apartheid. So it was just not choreographed enough. It wasn't, preparations wasn't done properly. And this is why I think the team fell short.
Yeah. Prof, for you, what are your initial reactions?
Thank you. I'm actually here to talk about the budget.
I know, pardon me, I know. I just had to put you in the spotlight there because ultimately when you listen to what came out from the budget, for example, a little earlier on, is that we do need the jobs. We do need an economy to grow. And in part, when you listen in that Oval Office, for example, to Ezinge Swalosi from COSATU, who speaks about the fact that if we do not have foreign direct investment, we're in trouble because we're going to see a lot more jobs that are being lost. So I wonder, do you think on that score, absolutely, did we, put our best foot forward?
I don't think so, not in this particular hour-long interview. I agree with what Oscar's saying, and others. I think that our president spoke with composure and dignity and gravitas. At the same time, he wasn't given much of a chance to really put his points across. It is unfortunate that, as somebody else said, Trump ambushed half the meeting with the whole genocide story. I agree with Oscar. I mean, potentially the presence of John Steenhuisen could have been superb, given the realities, being a member of the opposition, but also being the Minister of Agriculture. I too would have liked to see them having stats at the tip of their fingers. I don't have the stats in front of me, but I think it's fairly well known that when we look at so-called farm murders, at least half, if not more, of those people murdered are actually not the farmers themselves, but farm workers. I would have pointed out that as awful as farm murders are, you probably find that on any given evening of any time of the day or night or any day of the week, that there are probably 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 murders of black, African or colored people. The numbers are way more than farm murders, which I'm not trying to condone. I would also try to, and I know it all becomes pedantic in some ways or semantics, try to really dig deep into what we mean by genocide and persecution. I mean, I haven't tried very hard. I've yet to meet anybody who knows anybody who knows anybody who knows anybody who's been persecuted. And Donald Trump had these so-called figures that he quoted. I really don't think that we were prepared for that. We should have been. I think these are obvious issues that would have arisen. Having said that, I suppose that the real issues will now be discussed behind closed doors. And I certainly hope, speaking now as an economist, that the focus will move towards bilateral. We know that America is one of our biggest trade partners, second biggest in terms of export earnings, and I think our fourth biggest source of imports. China's top of both of those logs, by the way. I looked up some figures. It's interesting. If we look at our exports to Mozambique and Botswana, together, percentage as our exports to America, just for interest's sake. But we need America, and I'm particularly concerned about the PEPFAR. Without over-dramatizing, there's a chance that in the absence of PEPFAR funding, that a few thousand or even more South Africans might die as a result of AIDS not being properly treated. So I think these are the kind of things that hopefully behind closed doors they will explore. I don't think we can expect too much in 45 minutes. Hopefully, at the very best, at the very minimum, what's the word they keep using? A realignment, a resetting, a restoration of good relationships, and secondly, at least agreeing to talk about trade and tariffs. I don't think they can't solve it now, but agree to talk about it.
And when you look at this then, briefly, Prof, just before I give you just about a couple of seconds for both of you to just give us your closing remarks. When you look at this, this particular deal and the current tensions that would have been apparent between the two countries, do you think they can be able to put aside some of the issues and then be able to come out of this particular meeting with a deal that can work for both of them?
Oscar, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I think, as I said, Bongiwe, I think that is going to be possible. I think that the demeanor of Trump, even though we saw the spectacle around the white genocide, his demeanor is one that says he wants to help, he wants to partner. And I do think the fact that the whole of his contingent was actually very quiet, unlike the situation with Zelensky, Vance or anyone else didn't get involved, I think is a positive thing. I think that at the end of the day, we are going to see President Ramaphosa returning with goodies, if we can put it like that, regardless of what that took place.
Prof, does the deal then also mend the fractured relations?
Well, I mean, it's chicken and egg situation. Hopefully it would. I can't help asking or wondering why this particular focus by Donald Trump on South Africa. Maybe it's a kind of a backhanded compliment. Maybe in a certain way he realizes we're more important than we might think. Without getting too pedantic again, I often remind people out of 218 countries in the world, we are the 28th largest economy. We also strategically placed, of course. Someone mentioned the Simonstown story. So maybe, as it and he needs us, perhaps not as much as we need them, but perhaps more than we think.
Let me thank you both for your time, and let's see then what happens. And thank you so much to both of you for staying with us as we're watching the developments there in the Oval Office. Appreciate it. That was that Dr. Oscar van Heerden, Research Associate at the UJ Center for African Diplomacy as well as Leadership, and also Professor Roux from the Stellenbosch Business School.